organizations. Of course they would say those things. Well, let me share with you what the proponents of this bill are saying. Let me share with you what the folks who want this bill to be enacted, where they stand on the subject. Let's go first to the National Organization of Women. And this is on their website. You can go there and read this for yourself. They have a question and answer section on the Freedom of Choice Act. And they ask this question: if passed, how would FOCA affect women's reproductive freedom? The answer: once enacted, FOCA will protect a woman's right to an abortion by federal statute. This means that if our worst fear comes to pass and a newly constituted anti-choice Supreme Court overrules Roe v. Wade, women in the United States will have the protection of federal law in the exercise of their right to choose abortion. In addition, FOCA would immediately restore reproductive freedom for the millions of women who already face interference with their reproductive rights as a result of onerous state and federal restrictions. Now remember that, onerous state and federal restrictions. I'll come back to that in just a moment. FOCA will supersede laws that restrict the right to abortion, including laws that prohibit the public funding of abortion care for poor women. You read that right. It said that it would prohibit laws that prohibit that. It would overturn that. In other words, there would be public funding of abortion for poor women or counseling and referrals for abortion services. Additionally, FOCA will prohibit onerous restrictions on this right, such as mandated delays and medically unnecessary regulations. As a result, women will be freed from improper governmental interference with their right to choose a pre-viability abortion. Women who require a post-viability abortion in order to preserve their lives or health will also be protected by FOCA. What are they talking about when they say these onerous state and federal regulations? Well, they're talking about things such as waiting periods. Maybe an area would have a waiting period and say that if a woman wants an abortion, she needs to wait 3 days to make sure she knows what she wants to do. Or she needs full disclosure to be told exactly what all is involved in an abortion and what all the possible complications might be. They consider that to be onerous restrictions. Well, they ask another question. What would be the impact of FOCA on abortion procedure bans, so-called partial birth abortion bans? Their answer: FOCA would supersede the federal ban and any state ban to the extent that those bans restrict pre-viability abortion procedures or post-viability procedures necessary to preserve a woman's health or life. Now, furthermore, as I stated earlier, let me tell you right now, we don't want to see any woman harmed. But there's no reason for that. A woman's life can be protected and the baby's life can be protected as well. What is this idea of partial birth abortion? Please forgive me for being somewhat graphic, but I think you need to be reminded exactly what's involved in partial birth abortion. The procedure is performed in which a living fetus is pulled feet first, in the case of a breech presentation, into the birth canal except for the head, which is kept lodged in the cervix. The abortionist then punctures the skull with a hollow tube called a trocar and removes the brain with a powerful suction machine, causing the skull to collapse. The now dead baby is then delivered. Folks, this is barbaric. This is heathenish. To think that we would do anything so evil in the United States of America, and that there would actually be a bill in Congress to make sure that this is the law of the land, to allow any woman on demand to be able to brutally abort their unborn baby. They ask the question, does FOCA prohibit states from limiting access to abortion services for minors? Please follow along closely. FOCA prohibits states from enacting laws intended to deny or interfere with a woman's fundamental right to choose abortion. Minors have long been included within the protections of Roe. Parental consent or notification statutes have been used as a tool to deny access to abortion services for minors. When such laws deny or interfere with the ability of minors to access abortion services, they would violate FOCA. Do you understand what they're saying? They're saying that if your 12-year-old daughter becomes pregnant and she's afraid to approach you, and suppose that she goes to a school counselor, or maybe she goes to an aunt, or she goes to a cousin that's an adult, and she says, I'm scared to death. I'm pregnant. Well, have you talked to mom or dad? Are you kidding? I can't talk to mom or dad. They'd kill me. Well, we'll take care of it. Let's go have an abortion. And that aunt, that cousin, that school counselor would have more say than the mother or father. Do you understand? It's not just a matter of their consent. Parents would not even be necessarily needed to be notified in that particular case. I'm telling you, folks, this is so ludicrous that people who are even pro-abortion should be against this. Your child cannot receive Tylenol in the public school without written consent. Your child can't be taken away from school to have their ears pierced by someone without the parents knowing about it, and if they did, that person would be in a lot of trouble. But they want it to be the law of the land that another adult could take your 12-year-old, your 13-year-old away to have an abortion. You say, well, that's pretty radical. I'm not sure that all the pro-abortion people really feel that way. Well, consider what Planned Parenthood has to say on the subject. If a teen discovers she's pregnant, what does she do? Ideally, she would be able to discuss it with her parents and have their support in making a decision. Sadly, we do not live in an ideal world. For a variety of reasons, including fear of abuse, teenagers frequently feel they cannot tell their parents about their unintended pregnancies or desires to have an abortion. Yet, many states have laws that mandate at least one parent's involvement in the abortion decision. Teenagers who cannot tell their parents must either travel out of those states or obtain approval through a court or some other alternative process. The resulting delay increases the physical and emotional health risk to the teenager, since the earlier an abortion is, the safer it is. Do you understand? Planned Parenthood is all for the idea of doing away with parental consent laws. Do you understand that they think that it would be great if a woman, if a young teenager, or for that matter, a child, a young child, 13-year-old child, could have an abortion without even talking to their parents? That's how far they've gone. Well, let's just do a quick summary on what the Freedom of Choice Act is. It would do away with all informed consent laws. All informed consent laws would be overturned. In other words, a doctor would not have to tell you about all the possible complications that would be involved. Also, all parental notification laws would be nullified. All laws requiring a waiting period before abortion so that a woman could take time to think about her decision would be eliminated. The partial birth abortion ban of 2003 would be reversed. Now, this ban was tied up in court for 4 years and finally became effective April 18, 2007. That law would be reversed, and our nation would go back to the barbaric practice of murdering babies in one of the most horrific manners possible. Furthermore, the Hyde Amendment, which restricts taxpayer funding of abortions, would be reversed. Religiously affiliated hospitals that do not currently allow abortions in their facilities would be forced to either perform abortions or stop providing health care. Military hospitals would now be required to provide abortion the same as any other health care procedure. Also, health insurance for federal employees would have to cover abortion as a regular procedure with no restrictions. Doctors, nurses, and hospitals that conscientiously object to abortion would no longer be protected from lawsuits if it created a delay or inconvenience for a woman wishing to obtain an abortion. I want you to think about something. The name of this bill is called the Freedom of Choice Act. Boy, that's a great name, because who can be against freedom and who can be against choice? But let me tell you something. This is really an anti-choice bill. First of all, there's no choice for health care workers. A doctor who is approached by a patient and says, I want some information about having an abortion. Where